It's 2 o'clock here on the West Coast on the dot. Seems like a good time to get started. So welcome everybody to the Mylio Photos Coffee Break. My name is Angela Andrieux. I'm a product evangelist for Mylio, and my job is to help you be successful with the software. Today, we're going to be talking about adding a copyright notice to your photos. So up on the screen, I've got my Mylio library, and I want to show you how to add a copyright notice to your photos. So before we do this, what is a copyright notice? Why should you bother? Well, every time you press the shutter on your camera, whether it's on your phone, big camera, whatever, you're creating a copyright. But in order to have an enforceable copyright, meaning that you can, if somebody misuses your image, there are a couple of things that you have to do. Now, just a disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, and I do encourage you to do your own research. And if you need to talk to an intellectual property lawyer to do so, but what I'm going to share with you today is what I've researched and kind of what I've learned along the way to help me protect my photos, and hopefully it can help you as well. So in order to protect your copyright, there's two things that need to happen. The first one is you need to put a copyright notice on your images. And the second is to register that copyright with the US Copyright Office. We're going to talk about part one of that today. So part two is its own other step and process outside of what Mylio does, but we can help you put that copyright notice onto your images. And what that does is it basically creates a business card in your image. So if somebody finds your image online, let's say they find it, they love it, they want to use it in their advertising, or they want to use it on their product label, what they can do is take that image, look at the metadata, get your contact information, and reach out to you. And you can indicate in that license, in that information, what you're allowing them to do with your picture. So you can say, you can just use it with giving me attribution, or I reserve all the rights. You have to contact me and get my permission to do anything. So it's up to you what you put in there, but all of that can be entered in using Mylio, which is super helpful. So let me show you how to do that, and we'll get started here. So what you want to do for Mylio is, if you don't see it over here on the right side, you're going to look for the IPTC card. And right now I have it disabled, and this is the default state. So you're not going to see it over here in the right in the info panel. You're going to go up to the More menu, choose Settings, go down to Advanced, scroll to the bottom, and here you see IPTC info. We're going to go ahead and open that up. And in case you're wondering, IPTC stands for International Press Telecommunications Council, and it's the governing body that sets standards for image metadata. So what we use here at Mylio Photos are industry standard formats for adding this information to your images. So once you have this enabled, you go ahead and enter in your personal information, and you can enter in as much or as little as you want. You enter in what's comfortable, because this is the information that you're going to be embedding in those photos when you send them off to friends, family, post them on the internet, however you want to work with and share your images. So I'm also a professional photographer in addition to working for Mylio, and I want people to be able to contact me if they're interested in using my image. So I put in my name. I typically do not put in my street address, just because I want people to be able to contact me, but I don't want them to necessarily come be on my doorstep. I don't have a separate business address. If you have a separate business location, you can go ahead and put that in there. City, state, country. You can put your phone number in there if you want. I did for a long time. I'm not sure that's really so helpful anymore. Most people send an email these days. So I went ahead and took my phone number out of there. I'm wondering if also having my phone number in there has been accounting for the number of spam phone calls I get. That's a different story entirely. But, the more you put your information out there, the more it can be used. And then scrolling down, you can put in a website. You can put in your email address, and that's the primary way I want people to contact me. You can put in any special instructions. And then here is that copyright notice. So the typical format is going to have either a C or the copyright symbol, the year, your name, and then how you're allowing people to use that work. For me, because I don't want people using my work for anything without my permission, I say all rights reserved. Now, there are other ones that are Creative Commons licenses that you can say, I want people to be able to give me attribution and use my photos. They can share them as long as they give me credit, or they can make a derivative work from it, but they can't share it off as their own, or there's different ways you can do that. So I encourage you to do some research. And Lori, if you want to share that Creative Commons link in the chat, that would be helpful. So if you want to research some of those other types of licenses, you can certainly do that. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and go with all rights reserved. And then I can go down and click the back arrow, close out of this. And now you'll see over here on the right-hand side, I have IPTC. And if I expand that area, I now have all of these fields that I can go ahead and either fill in uniquely, or at the bottom, I can simply click Apply IPTC card. And I've got one file selected here, and I can say, go ahead and apply IPTC. And it automatically brings in all of that information that I just loaded into settings. And this can be done for a large group of images. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I want to find all of my mobile phone photos from the last month, because as I'm bringing in things from my big camera, I typically import and add this information in there, but I don't do that with my iPhone pictures. So I want to add that. I'm going to go down here and let's just go ahead and pin Apple. And then I'm going to scroll back up here to by date, go down by date range, and let's find everything from the last 30 days. So from here, all I need to do is do a Command or Control A, select all of those photos. You can see some of them have copyright information, some of them don't. But what I can do is just simply say, apply IPTC card. It's going to say, here's 94 files. Do you want all of these files to have this information? Click Apply IPTC. And now each one of these images that I selected all have my copyright and contact information now embedded in the metadata. Another way to do this is as you're importing media. So as I mentioned, all of the stuff that comes in from my big camera, if I'm importing a memory card, typically has that embedded automatically. So when you do that, let's go ahead and I'm just going to do a sample import here. I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Media and Add Media Accessible from this device. Let's go ahead and say I want to grab this folder, pretend this was a memory card. I don't have one connected right now, and just say Open. And I want to, if it's a memory card, I choose Copy. And if you go ahead and scroll down here to show advanced settings, if you have that IPTC card information enabled in settings, you'll now see this option here to apply IPTC card on import enabled. All you have to do is toggle this switch on. And as you import those photos, all of those pictures will automatically be embedded with your copyright information. You just click copy now and they'll come in and that information will be there. So that's really, really helpful. Let's see, let me take a look here and see what else I wanted to chat about. Looks like we've covered most of this. The other thing that actually, if you attended our webinar this last week with Allison Friedman, she talked about doing different ways to work with metadata on family history documents, photos, and things like that. She's a professional photo organizer. And she talked about how she uses these same IPTC fields for scan and historical documents. So let me jump over here to my inbox. And I was on familysearch.org recently, and I found this this draft registration card from my great-grandfather. So what I could do is if I had the link where this original document was found, I could simply go in here to the IPTC info, and under copyright info URL, I could put the link to that particular where that document came from. If this was a photograph taken by somebody else and I knew who it was photographed by, I could put them into the credit. There's a lot of other information in here that you can add if you have historical documents. So it's not just for adding information about yourself. If you have photos that were shared with you from somebody else, you can put them in here as the creator and for photo credit. So it's a really good way to kind of track how information comes into your library and where those photos and documents came from. So I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about with regard to creating copyright notice, adding that information to your photos. I'd like to open up the floor now to any questions and see what you guys all have to say. Looks like Lori added those links. Thank you so much. Oh, and awesome. Thank you for sharing that link to Allison's webinar. That was a fantastic session.
Yeah, that was really good.
All right. So Lori, you're also a professional photographer.
Yep.
Do you, when you do your copyright notice, do you use all rights reserved? Do you use a Creative Commons? Do you use something else?
No, I just, I use the copyright like what you did, IPTC, and just bring them all in so that they're all consistent. Every year it does change. So you might want to consider that as well if you're 2022 versus 2023. You might want to update
Yeah.
that.
Definitely good call. So you go in and you update that card every year. And if you're going to go in and do a big batch of images, let's say you found a whole memory card of images from 5 years ago, and you want those all to have the correct copyright date on there, you can go into settings, change your IPTC card to say that particular year, go ahead and apply that to all of those images, and then go back into settings and reset it back to the current year. So it's pretty flexible. One other thing to note with setting up an IPTC card is it is device specific. So just because I have it set up here on my computer does not mean it's set up on my iPad or my iPhone or any other device. You'll have to go into settings and enable it on each device and set it up on each device. I would personally really love to see that sync across and be available on all your devices. And if you agree with me, I would encourage you to go to forum.mylio.com into our feature requests and post that as a feature request. So that'll get a little bit more weight behind it, but I'm planning on putting that in front of our product team as well. Let's see here. Looks like a question here from Michael. What would copyright look like when applied to scanned images? Well, I mean, if they're your own photos, they would be, you put in copyright whatever year they were taken, or you could just put the C symbol, omit the year, and all rights reserved. The longer, there's like a statute of limitations on how long copyright lasts. So if they're quite old, I'm not sure that a copyright still applies, but you may want to have who captured that image as a matter of provenance as opposed to legal. That's pretty much what I would say about that. That's a good question, though. Any other questions? All right. Well, you all are a quiet group today. I hope this was helpful and you learned a little something. Copyright is kind of a deep topic, but you can take one step of that process here in Mylio Photos by adding that information to your images. And then last thing before we sign off, to make sure that information sticks with your photos as you export them and send them elsewhere. Let's go ahead and say we want to export and share this particular image. You want to make sure if you go down here to between Safe Share and Metadata, if Safe Share is on, that is going to strip all of the metadata, including that copyright information. So especially if you're a professional photographer or somebody who's trying to share that type of information, you want to turn Safe Share off, go into metadata, and then make sure that copyright and IPTC especially are turned on. You can disable and not include any of the rest of this information, but I do highly recommend having copyright and IPTC turned on when you share your images. So that's it. And as far as copyright goes, do some research, check out those articles that Lori shared. It'll give you a little bit of a starting point. And if you have further questions, definitely talk to somebody who's an intellectual property professional, and they can steer you in the right direction. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I want to wish you guys a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.